It cuts to a lecture at school as the teacher is explaining things. Jaehyuk zones out and begins to think about how his body has a talent for using mana, though it's not on the level of a genius. It's better than his previous body, but it's weird that no matter how untrained the body was, the condition is terrible. He was barely able to circulate his Kai on the first day, and just a little bit of shoveling made him want to pass out. And he wonders if something happened in the past, but realizes there's no point in stressing over it now. He sees Soy and tapping at his desk, and she hands him a note. He opens it up just to see hey, and he wonders what she wants. It shows the teacher explaining everyone is allowed to leave school, but to submit an application beforehand. And that's all for class today. We see Jaehyuk holding an application for leave, and Barky asks if he's planning to go outside. Jaehyuk says he is, and Barky asks where he's going, and before he can answer, he's interrupted by Soyeon calling out to him. He asks what she wants and tells her he even replied to the note, but she didn't say anything. He tells her to hurry up because he needs to submit something, and she begins to stutter very badly, saying so. And I repeatedly, he tells her to hurry up and say it, and calls her a freak. She gets angry, asking why she's a freak, and he asks her if she's making him angry for fun or if it's normal, and asks what she wants to say. It cuts back to him killing the rock goblin, and she's confused because it's different than the books, and she just wants to know how he killed the goblin. But her pride hurts too much as she begins to ask him. Lilia asks him how he killed the rock goblin, and they are both confused. He's confused where she came from and asks her why she's butting in, and he thought she hated him because he embarrassed her. She says she's not bothered by it, and she believed there was only one way to kill monsters, but he showed her that isn't true. And she asks if he wants to be her assistant. He tells her no, and he's turning in his form to leave. She begins to beg him, and they continue walking away from Soyeon, who is shocked she was left out of the conversation. The next day we see Jaehyuk at the market. It gives us a flashback of him on his phone getting information about where he can sell the treasure in the vault, and he finds the market. And from what he's researched, after paying an entrance fee, you can trade anything, but it's seen as a black market that villains use. And the reason the market is even possible is due to a constellation called the Hidden Ruler. And since a constellation created and maintains it, high-ranking people use it openly, even though it's illegal. The government doesn't crack down on it, and that's the only reason he was able to find it. He sees a post on how to enter it and what to watch out for, but is interrupted by a text from Erin. She sends a bunch of crying rabbits and says she doesn't think she can make training tomorrow since she has to go out. He replies with KK, and she question marks him. He hits her with it back and says he's just telling her to have a nice trip. Then she spams him with nodding rabbit emojis. He goes back to the post because if you open the link in the comments, you can make a reservation. It then cuts to him back at the market, and he approaches a rundown cafe. He walks in and opens a door to see the market. He wonders why it feels familiar, even though it's his first time there, and especially the sky and the moon are similar to 300 years ago. Someone asks him if it's his first time, and he recalls the post mentioning a man wearing a leather suit, and he tells him it is and pulls out some money and hands it to the man. The man asks if he has any questions, and Jaehyuk says he needs to sell some jewels and wonders where to go. The man asks if he wants an auction, and he tells him no, he just wants to sell it quickly. The man tells him to head to the 3rd district because the merchants there buy anything. Jaehyuk asks who the most trustworthy merchant is, and he recommends someone named Morris and points him toward the 3rd district and gives directions and hands him a mask, saying he recommends he wears one due to the nature of the goods sold here. Everyone should wear a mask, and to think of it as a freebie. Jaehyuk thanks him and heads to the 3rd district. He finds Morris and tells him he has goods to sell. Morris says it depends on the item, but he will process them quickly. Jaehyuk pulls out a bag and drops it onto the table. Morris opens it and begins to inspect the rings and is shocked to find one of the rings is an artifact from the era of destruction. Morris wonders if the other rings are also artifacts, and he sees they all are. Jaehyuk calls out to him asking how much he can offer him, and Morris wonders where did he get this many artifacts, because based on his voice he's only in his 20 seconds. He asks him where he got them, and Jaehyuk says he heard those questions weren't asked here and wonders if he was mistaken. Morris says he's right and apologizes. He says he doesn't know how much to offer because he can't process them as they are from the era of destruction and he lacks the capital to buy them. Jaehyuk asks where to get his money's worth then, and Morris points him to the auction hall. Jaehyuk asks how long it would take to sell, and Morris says 2 to 3 weeks, and it'll be a while before the auction house opens. Jaehyuk realizes the whole process would be a pain and asks Morris how much they would go for at an auction. Morris puts it into his phone and shows Jaehyuk, and he is shocked to see so many zeros, and he asks Morris how much he is missing to buy them. Morris says even if he sold everything he had, he would still only have 3/4 of the worth. Jaehyuk tells him that is fine and Morris is shocked. We learn artifacts are worth a lot because of the constellations, and that they react well to artifacts from the era of destruction. And even a normal person could make a contract with an S-ranked constellation because of them. He recalls a contractor called the Alchemist and confirms again that the artifacts are from that era due to the way mana flows through them. He's surprised he got the artifacts and says today is his lucky day. We see someone approach his stall, and we see a man wearing a black cat mask. It cuts to Jaehyuk back at the cafe. He came through and checks his phone, and we see he learned a lot from the transaction, and with this his money issue is solved, and he even has way more left in the vault, so he shouldn't have any issues in the future. He receives a call from an unknown number and he answers it to hear Lilia asking him to get food together. He asks how she got his number and she says it's because she's an instructor and to come to the front of the fitness room for lunch, and he wonders who ends a call after saying what they need to and wonders if he should leech free food. It cuts back to the market and Morris is asking the man why he's here, and the man asks if their relationship is that bad. Morris says even if they see each other a few times, a merchant cannot just talk to the market's owner, and we're introduced to him. He goes by Black Cat. Cat tells him that he likes the way Morris treats him, and Morris asks why he's here. Cat tells him he'd like to look at the items he's listed for auction, and Morris says sure and pulls out the bag of rings. Cat tells him they should go for quite a bit, and Morris is confused about why he's saying that, and we see Cat's constellation really wants the ring. We see Lilia and Jaehyuk at a table, and she's eating pasta but notices that he isn't eating and asks him why. He just asks why Valhalla has a place like this, and she tells him that apart from the cafeteria and staff restaurant, they have a normal restaurant too, and is surprised he didn't know. He tells her he just wasn't interested and asks why she called him here. She asks him again to be her assistant. He quickly says no. She tells him to think about it first and explains he'd get many benefits. He asks what kind, and she tells him he'll get a scholarship and many grants and the chance to write a thesis with her, and if you publish a thesis, and his name will be listed in the Monster Research Association, and he can go out twice a week instead of once a month. He asks if there's anything else, and she tells him he gets to work with her. He says her ego sounds big, and she tells him to just be her assistant. He tells her doesn't want to. He thinks to himself that there's nothing tempting about the offer, and his current objective is getting to the eye of the Great Forest, and even if she's an instructor, getting there would be hard. He tells her he won't do it again, and she asks if he would like to trade intel, and she offers to give him the information he's curious about, and he'll tell her about monster attacks. He asks what kind of information. She tells him it's about Aaron, and as he goes to tell her he isn't interested, she interrupts him saying Aaron might be disowned by her family. Jaehyuk doesn't care and begins to leave, and Lilia asks where he's going, and he tells her the benefits aren't good for him and he's done eating, so he's leaving. She says he should give her some intel, and he tells her he didn't really care about it. He says there is actually something he's curious about and asks why she's so childish normally, but harsh while teaching. She says if she joked around while teaching about monsters, it would cause trouble because monsters can be attributed to students' survival rates, and the students can't even memorize the basics, so she needs to be hard on them. He tells her that's cool and tells her good luck while leaving. She calls out to him again and says he should pay for the information before he leaves. He tells her he doesn't want to. It cuts to Shihung, and we're at the Kwajin family's estate. It shows Aaron's father John Seok and one of her brothers Jinjin, and he tells them if they pass the test they can form a contract with their sacred artifact, and it'll be a testament to them being the successor of the family. However, if you fail, you will be disowned by the family, and he asks if they'll choose to do it knowing this. They both say yes. Their father tells them it will be held 3 weeks from now and they may leave. We see Aaron and her brother walking, and he asks her if she can take a hint, and she asks what, and he explains how their father had a strong expression when she said she would participate, and he tells her it seems like she really wants to be the head of the family even though she is an illegitimate child. She makes a sour face, and he tells her don't delude yourself by thinking she can win. She can't even obtain a blessing, and she won't even be able to touch him. She doesn't say anything, and he tells her since she's given up to go leech off the family and that he'll see her in 3 weeks. We see her standing there, and she recalls someone telling her she must become the head of the family, and if she does then she can be free. It shows Jaehyuk in class, and Barky comments that it's midterm season, and Jaehyuk is surprised he's mentioning it, and Barky tells him if he would be quiet he could hear what the teacher is saying about the midterms. The teacher says that exams are a huge deal, and the lowest scoring students get kicked out, and he hopes everyone is prepared for their exams. Jaehyuk isn't worried about the practical exam, but he's been with him the entire time that he's taken the classes as well, so he can take the test for him instead. Barky says that he would find that unfair, and Jaehyuk tells him it's not unfair, he's doing the test. Barky is just telling him the answers. Class ends, and we see Arn approach to Hawk asking if they are training, and he asks if she doesn't want to do it. She tells him that isn't it, and he asks if she wants to learn swordsmanship, and he figured it was about time to talk about it. He tells her he'll teach her how to wield the blade and uses this chance to practice with his weapon. He tells her to meet him in the training room, and she says okay. It cuts to them in the training room, and he asks her how long it's been since she's used her sword, and she tells him a day and a half, and she hasn't touched it since she started training with him. He asks if before that she would practice daily, and she says yes. He tells her to one-sheath their sword, and we see her pull it out. He instructs her how to grip it, and she is shocked by the difference in slightly changing her grip. He tells her to come at him, and we see her sheath her sword again, and lightning begin to surge around her. She notices she's faster than before, but it is blocked. Jaehyuk comments on it and tells her not to put more magic into her feet than she needs to. She says okay, and we see her repeat it. He compliments her but tells her to rotate more when she stops, then tells her to continue attacking him and not to rest. She says okay, and they clash swords again. We see Jaehyuk dodge her blade, and it destroys some of the floor. She's glad to see that she's much stronger than before, and they continue clashing swords. It cuts to later in that day, and we see that Eren has damaged the training area and is tired. Jaehyuk says it's been an hour already, so they should just call it here. She drops to the floor out of breath and is happy that her skills have asks when they will spar again, and Jaehyuk thinks about it and how it's beneficial to spar with her, and it's fun to teach her since she's talented and she's familiar with draftsmanship. I have no idea what this is, and thanks to that it can help him find his senses, and if it were 300 years ago she would have been worth making into a disciple, but he doesn't have the freedom right now. She asks again if they'll spar another time, and he decides to joke around with her and tells her doesn't want to end. She instantly says understood. He's surprised she gave up so fast, and she says it's because he's right, and thinks that if she follows his words, she'll become stronger. He thinks about what she said and tells her that's all for today, and she tells him she'll see him next time. 2 weeks later at the stadium, we see Soyeon Suk and Eren, and Jaehyuk wonders why everyone is gathered here, and Barky tells him his teacher already told him 2 weeks ago. Senkil tells everyone he'll now explain the midterms, and that the evaluation is based on dungeon attack, and the students will team up and enter an artificial dungeon. They are free to make up any team, and the right amount of people is 8, but you can decide what number you want in your party, and you'll only be evaluated based on your contribution to the raid, and that the criteria for failing are not completing the raid in the given time. The dungeon's difficulty is F+, and he yells to start the exam. We see the students panicking and trying to form teams, and the teacher comments on them being flustered, and we see Soyeon saying her damage dealer isn't good enough, and she thinks to herself that she can't pick someone better than her, and 5 hours is plenty of time for the raid, and what's important is a contribution in a party of 6 looks easy, but it's hard to stand out. She tells her group it's time to go, says as expected of the 5th generation. She grasped the point behind the exam well, but the rest of the students go in as groups of 20 or 8, and if the team isn't well balanced there will be fights. Senkil tells the homeroom teacher that after 30 minutes they'll begin grading the students, and we see Jaehyuk watching them scoring the students who went in quickly, and he notices Eren hasn't gone in yet, so he asks her about it, and he asks her what she's going to do, and she says she'll do what Jaehyuk says. This surprises him, and he wonders why she's been following his words so well since their last session. He tells her he'll be going in alone, so go, and she asks if she should enter alone too. We see some of the students noticing Eren is alone. They approach her and tell her if she's teamless how about she joins them, since they only have 7 she would make their party 8. She apologizes and says she'll go in alone, and they call her crazy, saying she'll be disqualified. She tells them she can do it because Jaehyuk said it wasn't difficult. They try to tell her to wait, but she goes in alone. We see the teachers watching from a monitoring room. We see some students with barely any points. The homeroom teacher comments on how harsh the exam is and how quickly they are being graded, and we learn that Senkil is actually a legendary contractor with a 99 clear rate for dungeons, so He knows exactly what to look out for in this. This is why he can give score so quickly, we hear Sankayo thinking that overall it's a good year, and that the 5th generation children are doing well. But among them there's a standout student, Soyeon, and we see her giving clear instructions to her team, allowing them to fight as a group. Some archers shoot the monster they are fighting, and after he blocks their arrows, Soyeon leaps at it, killing it instantly. Sankle is impressed with how well she coordinated the attack with her group, and if she does well here, then it's just a matter of time until she's back at the top. If it wasn't for Judge, her record wouldn't have been ruined. He wonders how Jaehyuk is doing, and we see the machine wasn't able to find him in the dungeon, and he's shocked to see that he's actually already finished by himself without a party. Sankle wonders at the time Jaehyuk got as possible for a high schooler. He decides to watch the recording, and we see a group of enemies rushing at Judge, and he runs straight at them. He quickly kills a pair of goblins with one thrust, and then slices one of the enemies off the ceiling, but is greeted by 2 giant mobs, and they swing their weapons down toward him, destroying the floor. But he dodged it, and we see him in the air beside them, and kills them both with one slash. The instructors are shocked by his performance, and we see Jaehyuk standing in front of an armored golem, and Sankyo comments on how it's a special golem made specifically for the midterm, and was made to fight a group of 8. The golem swings his arms at Jaehyuk, rears his sword back, and thrusts it at the golem, knocking its head off, and he realizes first place is going to Jaehyuk. We see some of the other students coming out of the exam, as well as Soyeon, Suk, Aaron, and our boy Jaehyuk. The midterms are now finished. In the teacher's break room, we see the homeroom teacher, who is currently looking at the exam rankings. Of course, Jaehyuk is first place, followed by Aaron and the others. He seems shocked by the results and begins to have a flashback, talking to Sankle about the results. He says it isn't what they expected. Jaehyuk came in first place. Sankle says it's quite unexpected, because he figured Jaehyuk would get first place, but not the fact that he beat the dungeon solo without taking a single bit of damage. The homeroom teacher recalls Jaehyuk clapping the goblins during his class, and Sankle says if he grows up and enters the industry career, will retake its title as the one. The homeroom teacher asks if he means the title given to the world's strongest contractor. Sankle says he's right, and that maybe it's because they haven't had many geniuses in a while. But he is excited. The teacher says the unexpected thing about the exam was, but Sankyo finishes his sentence by saying Aaron's name, adding on to it by saying that while Joe Huge's time is already nuts, they didn't expect Aaron to ratio Soyeon by completing the dungeon solo. Albeit she got injured a lot, she cleared it alone. He knew she was a quiet, hard-working type of person, but he didn't expect she was the type of person to clear the dungeon solo. And if this exam focused on teamwork, Sion would have gotten a better score. However, since it was focused on contribution, that's why the rankings are that way. He also says he doesn't recommend the way they cleared the dungeon to regular students, because they are just built different. The homeroom teacher agrees with him. Back to the present, he says he saw her when he was an executive at the Huijin Guild, and she had the aura of a model student who only practiced swordsmanship, but wonders why she cleared the dungeon alone. He then wonders if it's because of Jaehyuk. He instantly shoots thought down, wondering what he is thinking, saying he should just get the grades ready the next day. We see some of the students looking at their exam ranks. Among them is Rockdale, who is high-key melding at Jaehyuk, getting first place. He asks his attendant Yuri if Desra is in Korea right now. She says yeah. He tells her to call him immediately and prepare to head out later in the day. We are now at Chamsel in Seoul, inside of a coffee shop. Rockdale and Yuri enter. Rockdale is surprised at someone calling out to him. We see it's Desra. He tells him it's been a while. They are sitting at a table, and Rockdale looks nervous as Desra is munching away at some steak. He's hesitant to speak. Desra asks about Jaehyuk, wondering what he does. Rockdale says nothing much. He's just a brainless freshman from a nursery school, and that he is asking Desra for help because Jaehyuk disgraced him. He tells Desra to please make him pay. Desra gets serious, asking if he can kill Juja. He says that's up to him. Desra says it's different from last time, and he has to prepare the board properly. Rockdale is lost while Desra points his finger at Yuri, saying because of having to deal with her a long time ago, he had a big fight with the Palace family, that he isn't sure if it's because there aren't many people in the Palace family, but he had to kill some of them due to rumors spreading too far. Yuri is frightened by him. He says the people over at Valhalla are different, and it'll be difficult to get in and make a mess. Rockdale says he understands, and he will do his best to set the stage for him, so not to worry about it. Desra laughs, telling him to prepare a nice reward. A week later, we see Jaehyuk holding a request to leave Valhalla to have a walk. Barky asks if it's in application to go outside, and he says yes. Barky says, didn't they let you leave once already? Jayak says, yes, but they are allowing him to leave again. Barky says, come to think of it, he heard that. If you were to do well on a big exam such as midterms or finals, you would be given another chance to leave. Any guesses that's why Juhak is asking? Says yeah. He doesn't want to waste the opportunity since he needs to look for his notes. Barky asks where he is going.